You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Dale, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world, and have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy! We are super excited to have Chip Conley himself, the poster boy of pro-aging, all the way from the USA at our back fence. Chip started in hospitality, a successful young entrepreneur founding Joie de Vivre boutique hotels and then putting Airbnb on the map. Chip, a 3 times TED talker, author of 7 New York Times best-selling books, and his latest, Learning to Love Midlife, which don't we love, Daddy? He has created the Modern Elder Academy, which we want to hear all about. Chip is redefining midlife as a time to thrive. We're super excited to have him at our back fence.
Yay.
So welcome,
Chip.
Honored to be here.
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking, as I always do, where do you start with an interview with someone like Chip Conley? And I thought probably a good way to start is to say thank you for helping us escape the quagmire around midlife, as they classify it a crisis, but being, as many of our listeners are, working their way through midlife. But, you know, I'd like to also start, how are you these days? How's your health?
Well, you know, I've been on a roller coaster because I have prostate cancer, and I went to stage 3, and so that means it spread beyond the prostate, and had my prostate taken out, had 36 sessions of radiation, had a 1.5 years of testosterone blockers. So I am.
Wow, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, but I'm actually feeling better. So things are good.
Oh, that's good. That makes really me happy. Good to hear. Well, I tell you, you're looking pretty good there.
Yeah, you're looking hot, Chip. Midlife agrees with him.
But it's amazing. You're just sort of saying a bit with your background beforehand, and then going into sort of like pro-aging. What sort of led you into this area, Chip?
You know, in my late 40s, I went through a really difficult time. You could call it the midlife crisis, but I would now call it the midlife chrysalis, because the chrysalis is the midlife for the butterfly, from the caterpillar to the butterfly journey. And it's dark and gooey and solitary, but it's also where the transformation happens. But I didn't know that in my late 40s. What I knew is that everything that could go wrong in my life was going wrong. And I felt stupid. I felt like I was playing the game of life wrong. And I was losing friends. I lost 5 male friends to suicide during the Great Recession between 2008 and 2010. And long story short is I had an NDE. I had a near-death experience. I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic. And so I died. And I went to the other side. And that really taught me that, okay, if I have only one more day left to live, is this the way I want to live? And I answered my own question saying no. And I figured out how to sell my Joie de Vivre boutique hotel company at the bottom of the market. And by age 50, I was sort of freed to figure out what was next for me. And I spent 2 years doing midlife atrium, a language that comes from Mary Catherine Bateson, an academic, and really creating the space that you have in an atrium, the light, the space, and the time to reflect on how do I want to live the second half of my adult life. And my 50s were spectacular. But what really was interesting to me is, wow, my late 40s were terrible in midlife. My 50s were spectacular in midlife. Why is no one talking about this? And then out of the blue, this study came out, the U curve of happiness, that showed that on average, people's low point in life satisfaction in adulthood is 45 to 50. And after age 50, we get happier with each decade all the way till the time we die. So I was like, okay, there's a lot of social science out there that's not well known in the public that should be well known. And I want to write a book about this and create the world's first midlife wisdom school.
I love the, I was reading about the, what I love most about the U curve to happiness was it's a smile.
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
And I know you just briefly mentioned it, but it's stayed with me and it's resonated with me, that U curve to happiness. Can you just elaborate a little bit further around that?
Yeah. So it's a global study that's been going on for about 15 years that has shown that across cultures, there is a long, slow decline in life satisfaction starting in your early to mid 20s and then bottoming out around age 45 to 50.
Interesting,
Now,
that,
It's
isn't it?
so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it varies based upon the culture, but generally speaking, it's between about 45 and 52. And then starting around 50 or in the early 50s, people's level of life satisfaction grows. And there's 50s, they're happier than their 40s, 60s, happier than 50s, 70s, happier than 60s, and women in their 80s, happier than their 70s.
Ooh, it's good. Good news.
Something to look forward to.
There's a lot of reasons for this. There's a lot, people feel often in their 40s that like they're just like at spinning plates. There's no time in their life.
Mouse on the wheel.
Yeah.
You have the parent taking care of your parents while you're taking care of your kids. You have expectations that are not being met. Your body's starting to fall apart. There's a lot of things that are going on in our late 40s that lead to this, bottoming out of life satisfaction.
It's interesting too, if you can sort of explain just sort of like the age now of midlife, because, you're sort of saying it can basically start, is that right, from nearly about 35 going up to 70, like the early...
75 even.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Well, how's that?
That's an
And tell us
eye-opener.
why, like the three stages really of midlife.
the 3 stages of midlife, so 35 to 50 is early midlife. This is the hardest part
Right.
of midlife.
Okay, early
Yes,
midlife,
yeah.
right?
Early midlife, 35 to 50. And then there's the core of midlife, and that's 50 to 60. And that's a period where you're really in the chrysalis, but starting to emerge from the chrysalis and starting to feel like, okay, I've got freedom. And then 60 to 75 is later midlife. And later midlife is a time when you're really getting prepared for the later part of your life. I'm 64 as of 2 days from now. And
Yahoo!
Ooh, birthday.
2 days from now, actually. So the long story short is that midlife is the bridge between early adulthood and later adulthood. And with people,
Interesting.
Yes,
people
isn't
in
it?
early adulthood maybe finishes around 35, and later adulthood maybe starts at 75. Now, in some countries, it starts a lot earlier than that. But in a world in which more and more of us are living into our 80s and 90s, maybe many centenarians, 75 is about right, because actually a lot of people are working till their mid 70s as well.
Yeah, and it's so good to see that change. And, Chip, it's just sort of, we're thrilled to have sort of someone like you on our podcast because, we're sort of all about kicking ass as we age.
Major.
And as I sort of said, you're the poster
Age is
boy.
but a number.
Yeah, for it. But it's just great now that also you're providing tools for people, so it's just really good because beforehand it was sort of a thing of going, you've got to retire at, 55 and get the gold watch.
And go out to the pasture and chew the grass.
And that's it. And look,
Truly.
But also, what are some of
Nom.
your tips as well? Like, I know you're sort of saying it's maybe good to start something new, or what do you advise, say, for some of our listeners?
Particularly if someone's feeling invisible. And I love how you use that word because it's a great word because it speaks 1,000 words. And also, or lonely, as we know, is one of the biggest killers of the human race.
Yeah. Well, the social science has shown us that the number one feature for how women feel in a negative way in their 50s is they feel invisible, and men feel irrelevant. And so let's start by saying there's a gender divide there on some level. And so what I think is interesting, and then loneliness is true across both. We started 7 years ago, the Modern Elder Academy, and we've had lots of folks from your part of the world who've come up and
a couple of our friends, Alex Andrews, who's a former guest on board, and another friend, Paul Gordon.
And they all love the experience. And we'll get into the Modern Elder Academy.
We'll get you up here.
You bloody well will.
We will.
We have 2 campuses, one a beach in Mexico, and the other one a large ranch in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the wild, wild west. And what we've seen is that for a lot of people, what's going on in the middle of their life is they feel like everybody else is doing it right and they're doing it wrong. When I say it, I mean midlife. And so some of the things that are going on in midlife are natural and normal. Menopause is natural and normal. And until the last few years, women weren't talking about it very much. The idea of your parents passing away is normal. It happens. The idea of, falling out of love potentially with your partner And whether that means divorce or a different kind of arrangement, that happens. Empty nest happens to almost everybody. In fact, almost everybody who has kids. So the truth is that there's a lot of people who are going through normal transitions and feeling as if they're abnormal in how they're relating to it. And so as a society, the word adolescence didn't exist until 1904. And we have now built a whole social infrastructure around adolescence and teen years to help them through all of these transitions and that you go through during puberty. But we have done a very poor job of creating social infrastructure for people in midolescence.
Here.
Yes, so true.
Midolescence being the middle of our life when we're going through all kinds of transitions, hormonal, emotional, physical, and identity transitions. And so that's really why I created MEA. And that's why I wrote this book, Learning to Love Midlife, and why I like being a midlife activist.
You know what I loved? I loved, did you note Nicola, Chip's idea? I love your brain. I love your visions about the midlife wisdom schools because of colleges in 10 to 15 years. A lot of colleges, I think it's because of college debt. I mean, God knows how they service that debt. But the concept of having, I mean, a lot of people are sitting invisible because the digital age, they don't even know how to bloody well turn a computer off. I always say, young person, please, young person, and they all come running. But just explain your concept, just briefly, the midlife wisdom schools. I loved it.
The premise, there are really 4 pillars to this. Number one is, how do we reframe our relationship with aging? Because Becca Levy at Yale University has shown that when you shift your mindset on aging from a negative to a positive, so from anti-aging to pro-aging, you gain 7.5 years of additional life.
That's a huge tick, isn't it? 7.5 years, really.
More than if you stop smoking at 50, you only get 4 years. If you start exercising at 50, you get 2 years. So the reality is this mindset shift has a huge impact on longevity. So that's sort of the frame under which there are 3 pillars for our program. How do you navigate transitions? How do you cultivate purpose? And how do you own your wisdom and learn how to maybe respect what you've learned along the way and learn how to share it?
And on that note, that's important, isn't it, Chip? Acknowledging and honoring, like the primitive elders were honored.
Oh, for sure. The indigenous elders. Yeah, both in, all over the world. I mean, we have a lot to learn from our elders, and our elders, the indigenous elders in Santa Fe, New Mexico, are Native American. They're sort of famous, also known as Indians. And, their 7-generation thinking is you don't make a decision that is going to have a negative impact in the next 6 generations after you. So you make long-term decisions, you care about the earth, et cetera. And there's, but this is a new form of eldership. So the traditional elder, all of the power often rested with men who are older. And the world we live in today, especially with the digital economy, power is very distributed. From a lot of younger people are, in the US, by the year 2027, the majority of Americans will have a younger boss. We've never seen anything like that before.
It's so interesting, isn't it, how it's changed so much.
It has.
Dramatically.
So the modern elder is someone who's as curious as they are wise. And the reason I learned this is they told me at Airbnb when I joined 12 years ago, and I was twice the age of the average person in the company. They said, we want you to be our in-house mentor. This is the 3 founders who said this, and Brian, the CEO. And after a month, they said, we hired you for your knowledge, but what we have really gotten is your wisdom. You're our modern elder. You're as curious as you are.
Sorry for laughing.
That's great.
The term makes me giggle, but it's so much in it. There's so much juice in it.
Well, it's different than a traditional elder because the traditional elder had all the power and had wisdom. But I don't know if the traditional elder had curiosity. Today, if you're someone in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or later, curiosity is a really important way to understand how do you take what you've learned along the way and apply it in a new context, because the world's changing faster than ever. So I've loved it. I loved it at Airbnb. I was there 7.5 years, 4 years full-time, 3.5 years part-time, helping the founders take their company and turn
Boy,
it
did you
into.
make that blow up, didn't you?
Yeah,
Really?
Seriously.
Well, it was. We had a great team, so it was not just me.
Yeah.
So we definitely had a great team, and I deserve a lot of the credit because no one in the company had a hospitality background or travel background when I joined.
True.
So that was interesting. But yes, I think we're going to see more people who are realizing in midlife and later life that they want to be still active and participate in the workplace or in life, but they are going to have to do it differently than their parents did.
Yeah, and it's such a great positive take, I think, for everybody. You're giving everybody hope. You're giving people now. It's just really wonderful that you can be really proud. I just turned 60 this year, and it's like, yeehaw, woo. And, and I do feel like I've got
God
decades.
help the world when you're 80.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, I guess I flew around the world with the airlines and now sort of having a podcast and sort of sharing these things. And this is sort of like what we're into. And I love the term, if you can explain it a bit more, is age fluidity. Can you tell us more about that?
I've said that to a few people. They've gone, what?
I
You
love
said
it.
what, girl? I said age fluidity.
You got some of my best ones. My best words. So when we're familiar with the term gender fluid, and it really means that it's somebody who doesn't fit male or female all that well. They're not defined by their traditional gender. So I just said, well, why don't we have something called age fluid, not gender fluid, but age fluid, such that your age, your chronological age, nor your generation have to define you. Yeah. And you can actually be defined by all the ages you've ever been and will ever be. And what I like about that is there are a lot of people who feel like they're pigeonholed by their age, and they don't want to be pigeonholed by their age. They really want to be, whomever they want to be in that particular moment. And I know that I can be like a silly 13-year-old boy with crass humor.
I know.
Fun.
Love it.
Once again, I just think that's it's a great thing than sort of putting somebody in a box because they are a certain age. And we're all about energy. You can be with sort of someone who's 35 and to me dead boring, or you could be with someone who's 85 and rocking it.
And you know what? Because a lot of people in retirement, I call them retirement prisons and retirement homes, who are there, all their cognitive skills switched on, and they're going, I don't want to do bingo anymore.
Yes.
Like, I've got so much to offer the world, but no, I'll go and have lunch, then play more bingo. And it breaks my heart. Obviously, if you're blessed with your cognitive abilities, a lot of people in retirement homes / prisons with Alzheimer's, that's a different level altogether. Yeah. And we have to obviously mention that. But if you're blessed with health, age, what is that? Like, so what? You've got more wrinkles. So
but it's great too now that there's more tools and more things that people can do. What do you suggest for some of our listeners who might even be stuck sort of going, what do I do, really,
Yeah.
Well,
where do I start?
Yes.
Start by getting comfortable in being a beginner again. And that's a hard one.
Oh, I love that.
That's gold.
Bravo. Yes.
It is. It's so essential because when we aren't willing to try something new and be open to new experiences, we tend to get a fixed mindset.
Yes.
And these are the cranky old dudes, mostly dudes. It could be women too, but old guys who are they only have one way of how the world works, and they aren't willing to try anything new. They are very good at being critics.
Yes.
And so the value in becoming a beginner again, it really means that you're willing to try things and have a sense of humor.
And so, you know what, and not be afraid, I guess, to fail, because sometimes a lot of people, they're going, I can't try something new because I don't know this, or be a bit embarrassed to stuff up. And it's like, who cares?
Well, be more open. Just so, I used to go, I can't. Now I can.
So fixed mindset is very limiting. And a growth mindset means instead of trying to prove yourself and win, you're trying to improve yourself and learn. And what that does is it allows you to try new things. And, when you try new things, it's good for your brain. And so at MEA, we do all kinds of new things. It's not why people come, but it's actually part of the reason why they actually really enjoy themselves, because it's like, oh my gosh.
Tell us some of the things, because now you've learned to surf. Is that correct?
Yep. Learning to surf is one of the things people can learn to do. Learning how to do what's called equine assisted learning. We call it Equus. And it's a program where you actually learn emotional intelligence from a horse.
Oh, wow.
Learning how to do improv, learning how to bake bread
Yes.
Love that.
So the truth is the program is very much focused on social science research around, again, transitions, wellness, and wisdom and purpose. But we weave these other experiential elements in there, partly for fun, but partly because we do know that when people are open to trying new things and making a fool of themselves, it actually gets them to be less critical of themselves.
Did you say emotional intelligence from a horse?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
They're actually
Equine
working
assisted
with kids with autism with horses too.
Wow.
They're having profound effects.
It's called equine assisted learning,
It's
and it's a
amazing.
way of having horses are really remarkable readers of emotions. And so if you're fearful, they'll see it and feel it. So they have, within their repertoire, they can also know what it is you need at that particular moment.
That's
And so-
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
guys, just to reiterate, we are talking about the Modern Elder Academy. It's one's based in Santa Fe, one's in Baja. Can just briefly explain about the concept? Because I'm sold. I'm there.
And then we've got a
babe.
question we've got to ask you.
Yeah, no, it is the world's first midlife wisdom school. It's the average age of the people who comes 54, 63% women, and people from all over the world from 50 countries. It is a program that helps people to reimagine and repurpose themselves in midlife and beyond. And we have classes on mindset. How do you shift your mindset? We have classes on how do you go through a transition effectively. We call it TQ, transitional intelligence. We have classes on how to develop your wisdom and understand what you have to share with someone else, how to do mentorship, etc. So it's very much suited for people who want to continue being open to having a life that evolves over time.
Do you know what?
It's
I'm
like a
gonna
celebration.
do a podcast from over there.
What a great idea,
Baja.
Nicola.
Seriously, let's
A
do it. But
celebration
Chip, we've
of
got to ask you
midlife. I
too.
love
I love
it.
the question you say, and we want to ask our listeners too. 10 years from now.
What will you regret if you don't learn it or do it now?
Right.
So this is one that the two of you should think about.
I
Okay,
can't stop
okay.
thinking about it.
Do you know what it is? What you'd say?
I've written down 3 things.
Shoot.
Yeah, go for it.
One is more time with my family,
Yeah, good.
real intimate time with my family. The other one is have a boyfriend,
Woo!
because I've just come out of a 36-year marriage. I think I would
I
regret.
was going to say, you want more time with your family, but you want a boyfriend on the side. I love that.
Hey, there's no stopping
Sounds like an order in a restaurant. I'll have salad on the side.
Oh, I like that one. Chip, we're discovering new things. What's the third, Jodie?
I'm thinking about it.
Oh, okay.
But those two are very, very important to me. I'd like to have a
Okay.
boyfriend.
Yes, yeah.
Or at the right age
Well,
of
mine
64.
definitely now is I'd want to do a podcast from where you are. I want to keep on growing and doing more things
Yep.
like with this podcast
Yep.
and talking globally.
And you know what? The third thing just hit me. I wrote down more fun. Because I do crazy things. So your academy, the more I read about it, it just gets me excited, like childlike. Yeah. And that's where I want to go more. I want to stay in that realm of being childlike.
And I know your time is so limited and we're
I
really
know.
grateful, but we have to ask you a question too of if you could share a back fence, Chip Conley, with anybody on planet Earth, who would it be and why?
A back fence. Okay. I would share it probably with Barack Obama.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Because or Michelle Obama, even better.
Yes.
I like their philosophy of life. And and he's also younger than me by a year.
Okay.
Right, you can both relate. I love
that. Wow, that's countdown to the politics
and
now.
one more
isn't it, to the
question we're going to
election?
throw at you,
Yes,
Chip. What makes you happy?
Oh, my sons. I have sons who are 12 and 9.
Oh, how
And,
beautiful.
Family, nah.
yeah. And so I just I'm here in Baja right now teaching. They're in Texas. So, I'll see them soon.
Oh, that's
Chip,
fantastic.
just the back end of the interview, just a huge thank you from I know on behalf of a lot of the listeners now, just someone that's standing up with a flag going, hey, we're drowning over here. We need some help.
Yeah.
All over the world, let's all band together. Let's all be stupid. Let's still cartwheel.
Well, it's just such a great pro-aging, positive way to be that honestly, I'm so excited. We just had now just the beloved late Dr. Gladys McGarvey, who you would know, She was a guest this year on our
Yeah.
podcast, and God love her, she lived to 103. But she's like
Wow.
a poster girl of longevity, and she kickstarted her career really in her 70s. She got a
Yep.
divorce in her 70s, and
Yep.
she got a top-selling book in her 90s. So it's sort of like going, it's really, you give us so much hope, you're giving us tools, and we're really grateful.
Yeah.
So thank you
Don't
so
ask
much,
anyone's
Chip.
age. Just say, how are you?
Yes.
What's
yeah.
age?
Fluid. Woo.
You know, and also we're interviewing Dr. Kristen Neff tomorrow, which you would know
Oh,
of her.
wow.
And both of you are into Abraham Maslow. Like I noticed one of your books is How to Get Your Mojo from Maslow. I love that.
Yep.
That book was amazing. And the other one, Learning to Love Midlife, 12 Reasons Why Life
Yes,
Got
so
Better with
everybody,
Age.
we'll have all the links.
Just
in our
look him
show
up. He's
notes.
got the most amazing selection of books. Yeah. Chip, such a
Thank
pleasure
you so
to meet
much.
you.
Yeah, just really great. And we'll see you in either Baja or Santa Fe. I want to talk to the
Yeah.
horses, so maybe we can go there.
Desert to the sea.
I talk
sounds
to my
good.
dog the same way, and I think we've got a great bit of emotional intelligence going on. So it's probably is true with dogs and horses.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chip.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chip.
Appreciate it so
Gratitude.
much.
Thank you as well.
Wowza Di, what a great chat with Chip. Really. What was
Chip
your
Conley,
takeaways?
I've actually secretly admired for many, many years. I mean, particularly his involvement with helping to start bloody hell Airbnb. Who doesn't know Airbnb? You know,
Superhost.
he's just, he's a visionary. He's classified as a modern elder. He shares his wisdom in midlife with the world. Including what he just did with us. For all of you listening right now, I feel like there's a golden light around our studio. It was just so inspiring.
Yeah, it really was. And I sort of think now it sort of like shines the light of also life gets better really each decade. And I think it's that mindset.
Yeah.
Wow, we can get an extra 7 years of life. More so than even saying stopping smoking, food and junk food and all that sort of stuff there. It's sort of like your mindset. and
Which
it's
sounds
age
simple.
positive way.
But really it is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, some will, the old glaze over, I always use that terminology, but you can glaze over if you want to, or you can grab it by the balls and go, okay, today I'm going to do something kooky and crazy. And as he said, it's a mindset because we're habitual creatures and we get stuck.
Well, as you're saying
get
also,
stuck.
try something new. And I think for everybody, for listeners, what would you like to try something new? Like even, a few years ago, even when we started golf, it was sort of something there you go.
That I didn't want to do.
You didn't want to do. And it seems
Because
to
what
me-
did I say? Old people do
Yeah,
that.
and-
Now I love it more than anyone.
Exactly, because it's just a mindset. Whereas top paying,
true.
playing golfers who are making so much money are young. So
true.
golf is for any age. But
I
that was
think
for
someone
example,
also
or
said to
surfing.
me, Nicola, about the podcast before we started, I went, it was inclined, or it was someone trying to give me advice. Really, at your age, starting a podcast, and they're implying,
Never heard
without
that.
using
Wow.
those words directly, you might be too old to do that. And do you know what that did for me?
Yes.
It drove me harder and faster and more determined, with more enthusiasm, to go at this like a bull at a gate.
Yes, yeah.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, initially we started this because we wanted to inspire others.
Yes, it's
come on,
true.
everyone, get off the couch,
Yeah.
get away, as you said, for your mindsets, and start exploring the world, start exploring your
And
community.
it's interesting you say that because everyone's going to come across sort of someone who'll say, you shouldn't do that, or whether it's family beliefs or cultural beliefs. But as Chip said too, it's sort of say from a closed off mindset, which maybe that person it was who said it to you, or a critical one, or something, that they weren't happy with themselves, so they're sort of saying that to you. But to shift it simply to a growth mindset. And I think that was sort of something good. I love what he
Yeah.
said about being age fluid, sort of like
Great
now
terminology.
it's a really good
He chips
terminology
away
too. He chips
at midlife.
He does chip away, but he really is. It's a positive way. It's like thriving as we age. It's great. And also now how he's set up schools.
He's putting his money where his mouth
Is as well too, and also changing the way of people living as they do age, from even sort of like as you're saying to like the old age homes, and people are closed off, whereas now there's
changing.
communities of growth. So tell us, everybody, what was the question there? 10 years from now, what would you regret if you don't do it now? So it's a great
Now think about that,
question.
guys. Say it again, Nicola, because
Yes.
it's very powerful.
So 10 years from now, what would you regret if you didn't do it? So in 10 years' time, you'd look back you're a decade older, but you haven't done it.
So ultimately,
it's like,
don't
now's
think
the
of that as a
time.
negative. Think about that as, like in my case, for example, it's like getting the digestive juices flowing. It's like
I wanna know.
the excitement
And the
of
new boyfriend
of the
excites
thought.
me too,
Yeah.
Jodie. I think that's a good one.
But
Why not?
But the excitement
Yes.
of get the adrenaline pumping, and don't be panicky about it. Take it in your in your stride of
So
life.
let us know, everybody, and let
Yeah,
us know
love
what you
that.
think of Chip Conley.
Yeah.
We highly recommend the book. We highly recommend you can go online. We'll have all our info on the show notes.
You know what,
It
Nicola?
was a great
you know what
interview.
I see? I've just got this image, like, just how retirement villages and things like that are changing, just the attitudes towards them. Obviously they serve an amazing purpose in our society for some that are not well. But, listening to Chip and reading his books, honestly, I can see the future of elderly communities together where they grow their vegetables, they
Sustainable.
cook din-dins at night, and they might dance, they might read, they might sing, they might be in a hammock, whatever. But just, you know what I mean, like smaller communities where they're all supporting and helping each other.
I agree.
That's my vision. That's what
Yeah.
I'd love to see eventually.
Well, I think he's making it happen. He's certainly, like from Joie de Vivre, like
Yes.
that's Airbnb
True.
and now these sort of academies.
Yes, I
so
wonder what
it's
it'll
a
be
real
called.
way of the future, which,
Yeah.
is a really positive thing. So, guys,
Elders
I hope you
retirement villages.
enjoyed this chat,
Yeah. We
listening to
loved
this
it.
with Chip as much as we did. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to rate and review. Now, Jodie, Chip Conley, what would you give him? We want 5 stars for our potty if people want to do that, but what would you give Chip Conley all the way from Baja?
Do you know what? Because it's really up our alley, over the back fence. Everything he stands for is what we stand for. I'd have to say 100 out of 5.
Thanks for listening. We love it. Yeah,
Look
ciao,
forward
ciao.
to chatting next week. Bye.